Um, I'm Victoria Alexander. And welcome to Buying into Brooklyn. I'm the owner of Realty Collective, a boutique real estate firm I started 18, almost 19 years ago to defy the stereotypes that we're all aware of that come with the real estate industry, specifically here in New York City. This workshop is designed to outline the buying process in New York. It is no way comprehensive, but New York City is a different beast from anywhere else, and it can be overwhelming, especially if you've never done it before. So we will give you a good place to start today. We offer this workshop freely so that you have the information at your fingertips to make educated decisions and tear down the gatekeeping information that is often used as scary sales tactics to frighten you into working with people that might not be the best person for the job. We want everyone to feel empowered and educated. This is the biggest investment you'll make in your life, and you want to make sure you're making the right decision for yourself and hire experts. You need to help you and guide you along the way and avoid costly mistakes. We'll provide you with the basics you need to know before starting your journey, as well as provide you with tools to make sure to take some of the first steps. Also, Farah will be launching a poll. Answer it when you can. Do some market research for us. And I'm going to be introducing my dream team, Lisa and Rashida. We've been working together for a long time and worked on possibly 50 to 100 deals together. It's hard to count at this point. It's important to me to work with other strong women and with people I have long-term relationships with. It's easier to keep everyone accountable and communicate, especially when time is of the essence, and most importantly, keep deals on track. So I'm going to pass it over to Rashida, and then you can pass to Lisa.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rashida Sadiq. I am a real estate attorney. I have been practicing real estate law for going on 20 plus years now. My office is located in downtown Brooklyn. However, I practice in all of the boroughs and also licensed in New Jersey. I represent lots of first-time buyers, so definitely look forward to giving you an idea on what you should look forward as from an attorney's perspective and preparing you for this process of purchasing real estate. I represent clients in both houses, co-ops, condos, multifamilies, and as I said, all of the boroughs, included Nassau County, Suffolk County, as well as Westchester. So yeah, look forward to giving you, guiding you this afternoon. And I have worked with Victoria, actually represented her when she purchased her property many years ago, and then have worked with Lisa in the past. I would say we started these seminars in 2020. So yeah, I have worked with Lisa on many deals since then as well. So go ahead, Lisa, take it away.
Thanks, Rashida. Hey guys, thanks for having me. My name is Lisa. I am a loan officer at Cross Country Mortgage. Cross Country Mortgage, we're just like the big banks, but all we do is mortgages. I specialize with first-time home buyers. I really love helping people buy their first home. It's a big deal and it's scary. And me and Victoria and Rashida are really here to help you throughout the whole process. I can do mortgages all over the country, but my specialty is New York and the surrounding areas, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, etc. In terms of New York or in general, I really can do any type of residential mortgage, condos, co-ops, multifamily, single family. Basically, as long as it's a residential property, I can do a mortgage there. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the process, what's going on in the market, and how we can get you in the home in 2024.
Thanks, guys. And yes, that's true. This January will be 14 years since I bought my house. So been working with Rashida a very long time. So hi, I'm Victoria Alexander again, and my role as a buyer's broker is to be your expert, your coach. The seller now even negotiated with the new laws here in New York State, still pays in most cases the real estate broker fees because they know how important it is and how hard they are working to sell your home. So it is important that you understand that you need an expert at your side, and that doesn't have to be me. but you do need to find somebody. Everybody always thinks that they can go it alone. They read things on the internet, but what you really need is an expert at your side to get you through the process. Um, I'm a matchmaker, a therapist, your sounding board, whatever it takes to get you into your Brooklyn home or Manhattan and keep you as sane as possible as you ride the wild roller coaster of emotions that is the home buying process. More literally, my job is to guide you through this process step by step. At each step of the way, I will be giving you specific resources to help you navigate what and set your expectations so you feel comfortable um, understanding what's going to happen. So you're not caught off guard at any point. And I've experienced almost everything. It's my job to make sure to protect you against yourself and your own instincts. Negotiating is an art, and a lot of people let their emotions get the best of them. And let's make sure that reason drives your decision making and not emotions, and helps you get to the closing table. Plus, these services are built into the real estate transaction to provide, make sure that everybody is compensated for the work that they do. So you should make sure you should be taking advantage of how transactions are built here in New York. So the three people you need. So building your dream team, you definitely need these three people: a buyer's broker, that's me; a mortgage professional, that's Lisa; and a lawyer, that's Rashida. This is who I like to put together as a deal because we've all worked together for a really long time. If you get recommendations, call people, interview them, make sure you're hiring experts, not your cousin, not your brother who just got his real estate license. You want to have the expertise at your fingertips that have already gone through this transaction process and can warn you for, oh, you know what, this snag could possibly happen. This is the way we could go that way. But these are the things I should warn you about that if we make that decision. Not everybody's going to have that expertise at their fingertips if they've just started this career or they don't do New York State real estate law every day and they're doing divorce law, or they're not doing mortgages here in New York. They're doing them out in Alabama. I'm going to tell you, Rocket Mortgage is not a thing you can get qualified for here and use that pre-qual to buy an apartment. You need to use New York City experts to make sure a transaction goes through. So all of these people have a fiduciary responsibility to you. Like I said, interview them. This is a job, and you want to make sure you're hiring the right people to work with you. And personality is important too. You're going to be talking to these people a lot. You want to make sure you like them, do you trust them, you can take advice for them. If you cannot listen and take advice from the people that are your guided, trusted um, uh, advisors, then you need to pick different advisors that you can listen to and take advice from, because that is exactly what we're doing. Rashida can lay out all of the risks involved with going down this path, and if you think you know better because of whatever, you just don't, this isn't the right person, find the person that you can hear the risks involved so that you really can take them in. So why buy now? Well, if you're going to buy in the next 2 weeks, it's a very good time to buy. This is when sellers are looking to make deals. Always, this is like the lull. There's not new inventory coming on the market because everybody's in holiday mode. Thank you for joining during the busy season, everybody that is on with us today. And it can be, a great time to buy even with the high interest rates because prices have adjusted. There's less inventory, but there's also less buyers right now that have been scared off by the interest rates. And if you're planning on staying in New York City a long time, especially in this apartment you're about to buy, you should consider buying. There is an article, Farrah's going to put a link to this rent versus buy matrix from the New York Times that they just updated. And the New York Times audio just did a great story on this that I re-listened to by the person that actually developed this calculator. New York City is one of the places that is an anomaly, especially the Bronx, they said, of these numbers. And calculating rentals versus buying right now in New York puts you, in a different place than if you were buying in another part of the country. So really figuring out, if you plan on New York City, if you plan on staying in this apartment at least 5 years, probably buying is right for you. Rent is too damn high. You don't get to have your own design. It's a long-term investment in yourself, and you're building equity in yourself if you are getting the right financial deal. We're not going to let you buy something that you're not going to be able to afford. I always warn somebody, it's not just about the purchase price. It's about the monthlies, understanding, can you afford to pay this monthly price every month? Are you actually going to be saving money, or are you going to be digging yourself into a hole? So your team is assembled. You have the 3 people you absolutely have to need, and you've called ahead of time, not after you've found the apartment and you've interviewed them, and you're saying, so you know that this person is going to be your lawyer and this person is going to be your mortgage broker before you even hit the ground running, because you want to have your team assembled. That's one of the biggest things that I think that trips people up. And like I said, it's not scare tactics to warn you of this problem that people have, and it doesn't cost you money, but it does cost you possibly losing the apartment that you really want because somebody else is more prepared for you. So it's just helping you get prepared. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. um, the other people you might need: inspector, a contractor, you might need an architect to tell you that you're buying a sound home. Everybody's going to tell you get an inspection. Your offer is contingent usually on inspection, and you want to make sure that there's nothing wrong that's going to cost $100,000 in 5 weeks after you buy the house to take care of. We have a list of professionals we work with that we can recommend. So you found your dream team, you've talked to everybody and interviewed them. Now you're going to not look on Street Easy. You're going to call a mortgage professional and you're going to get your financing in place and get something called being pre-approved. We all want you to get pre-approved before you start looking. If you're self-employed, it's important to talk to a mortgage broker before you file your taxes to make sure you're representing the best versions of yourself to the banks. It's so important to do these steps first so you know what properties are going to be available to you and you don't crush your own dreams and pull the rug out of your feet before you even get started. So Lisa, I'm going to pass it away to you to go over the financing bit.
Sure. So it is really important to get pre-approved before you start looking at a home. The first reason is actually for yourself. You want to know what your buying power is. You don't want to waste time falling in love with properties that are way above the budget of the amount of the loan that you can get from a bank. You also don't want to maybe undercut what you think your buying power is without talking to a mortgage professional and knowing, what the maximum loan amount you can get from a bank. So I think probably one of the biggest confusions about my industry is that actually getting a mortgage is more of a personal process than people think. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm going to talk to you about your employment. I'm going to talk to you about your work history. I'm going to talk to you about, what you're thinking. Is this your forever home, or is this, a starter home for a few years? Are you buying it by yourself, or are you buying it with someone else? Are you getting a gift from your parents or another family member? The reason I'm asking all of this is because this actually helps figure out the best program for you. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a correspondent bank mortgage professional, which basically means I have about 90 products. So I can really get all of your information and figure out the best loan for you, rather than sticking you in the 130-year or 5-year ARM product I have. So we're going to have a conversation and I'm going to get some documents from you. I'm going to do a soft credit pull on your credit, and I'm going to crunch the numbers. And this will give you an idea of this pre-approval is really going to be a working document. Okay. So as you start to see more things with Victoria, we can fine tune what, the actual property is that you're going to buy. Now, if you're a first-time home buyer, there are some first-time home buyer products out there, which we're a preferred lender. There's some products that are income restricted. So that means it is, in order to qualify for that product, you have to make under such an income, depending on how many people are in your household. I also have some first-time home buyer programs that aren't income restricted, so we can see if you qualify for those as well. There's also FHA, which allows you to do as little as 3.5% down, or some conventional programs that allow you to do as little as 5 or 10% down. These are really going to be products for condos or single family homes, FHA for single family or multifamily, the other 10% products potentially for condos. If you're looking at a co-op, 9 times out of 10, the board's going to require you to put 20% down. So when we talk, we'll have a conversation about all those different numbers and what it looks like. Now, probably one of the misconceptions about getting pre-approved is if you're self-employed. If you're self-employed, 100% you can get a mortgage and you can buy a place. What we're going to do is we're going to look at your tax returns and we're going to see what they look like. And then we're going to talk about preparing for your tax returns for next year so that you maximize your buying power. So now is actually a perfect time to have that conversation so that you're prepared when you get ready to file your returns, in January to April of next year, that you have the information to sort of maximize your purchase power if needed. The last thing I'll just say is that, it's never too early to talk to a mortgage professional about getting pre-approved. I have clients I've worked with for 5, 6 years. And it was just about getting them in the right financial place to be ready to sort of pull the trigger and buy a property. But yeah, and then after we have that pre-approval, then you'll go out with Victoria and start to fine tune what that looks like. 2 last important things about the pre-approval. The pre-approval is based on the financial picture that you have given me at the time. So if you get a new job, if you get a new car, if you take out a new student loan, not to say you can't do that, but that's something that you want to talk to me about before you do so, because all of those things will change the financial picture of what we've pre-approved you for. So I think that's a basic rundown. And then after you have that pre-approval, you will start to see things with Victoria, and we'll go from there. Oh, you're on mute, Victoria.
I do that all the time. Like jump right back in. So once you have your pre-approval in hand, then we really make sure that we fine tune your search, because we've probably already set up a search criteria for you. So we're going to fine tune your search, right? Make sure the numbers are correct, that we're going to make sure that your monthly numbers are correct, as well as your purchase power is correct. And then we're going to understand your buying strategy. And like Lisa said, maybe you want to buy in the next year, maybe it's in the next 5 years, whatever the timeline is. We're not rushing you. We're here to reach your goals and facilitate your needs. That's our main job here. So we're just here to support you and be the expert so that you do it correctly. So we're going to establish your buying strategy. When you're going to ask yourself a couple questions, will you always be working from home? Is commute important to you? What amenities do you need to live nearby? Do you need to live by the park? Do you need to be by the subway, a certain train line, so you can get to the Port Authority to go back to Long Island or New Jersey or wherever, so that you can see your family? Like, what are the things that you feel are important on your top of your list? Are you going to be living this place for 5 years? Is school going to be taking into effect? Because you're starting a family, you already have kids. People always want to talk about school district before they even have kids. I'm like, let's just wait till we cross that bridge. You don't need to start worrying about things that don't even exist yet. And in the long run, that always usually works out, because then they either rent or sell their property and they, move into the school district they want to be in. And school districts, a lot can happen in 5 years in school districts. Family, are you going to start the family, the school, does your commute matter? Do you want to be in Brownstone, Brooklyn, or do you want amenities? Do you want to have a pool? Do you want to have a gym? Do you want to have a doorman? What amenities are important to you? Pre-war building, all of this building typology. Sarah's going to put a link in about different types of housing, co-ops versus condos, and what those, where your fees are going, your maintenance and your common charge fees go, because co-ops, sometimes they not only have a super, they have a porter and they have a doorman and all these other salaries that you're paying, and that's why you're paying over $1,000 a month in co-op fees. So you want to understand what that is. So types of home matter, and that's why I sent we're sending that over to you so you can understand what type of home might be right for you. So neighborhood, that everyone's like, oh, I love living in I really want to live in Cobble Hill, but I want new construction. I want a gym in my building and I want an elevator. There's probably less than 10 apartment buildings that have elevators in Cobble Hill. So you want to make sure what you want and what exists in reality match. This isn't Sims. Can't just create it on the computer. If you want a doorman and you want a pre-war charm and you want a gym in your building, also might be challenging, surprisingly. There just hasn't been, a lot of gyms put into old co-op buildings. So understanding the typology of the building, the types of buildings, and their structure. So co-ops and condos is their structure, exist in the neighborhood you want. Because if you're like, oh, I want to be in a co-op in Williamsburg, also few and far between. A lot of HDFC co-ops in Williamsburg, but not so much beyond that. So understanding that. I always tell people to make their list of 5 deal breakers and then realize you'll probably only get 2 or 3 of them unless you're really rich. And that this is just New York City and we're going to have to make concessions and compromises. And this is just about getting your foot in the door and building stability and not paying. If you're paying a mortgage, are you paying yours or somebody else's? In New York City, it's a lot of money for rent. It's not like other places. So that's really where it comes into understanding that rent versus buy calculator, how much you're possibly losing paying rent versus purchasing. And and also your comfort level. I know that there's a lot of talk about how buying now doesn't make sense, and in some cities it definitely doesn't. And for some properties too, you need to buy within your means and buy something that you're going to be able to stay no matter if your salary stays the same. You cannot bank on your bonuses and things keeping steadily increasing. You need to say, okay, this is like where I am now, and no, I can stay at this level for the next couple of years, because that's not what happened and how 2008 happened. Because all of the Lehman Brothers, they were all like, oh, well, I'm going to get another $1 million bonus and another $1 million bonus. And then everything just toppled because they all over leveraged themselves. We're going to not over leverage ourselves, and we're going to make reasonable decisions about moving forward about purchasing. So one of those things is not only understanding what compromises you need to make to live within your means, but also understanding new construction, understanding closing costs. I always say there's a 1 to 3% for co-ops and just and 3 to 5% for condos and new construction. Depends on what you negotiate. You got to negotiate those transfer taxes. And sellers usually have about 8% in closing costs if they're paying both sides of the brokerage deal. Um, and now where do you find these homes? Where do you search? If you guys want to put in the chat where you're looking, some people tell me they look on Redfin, and I'm always like, what? Like, this does not seem like the most user-friendly, comprehensive site to be looking on, and their listings do not stay up to date. But it is a site that people use. StreetEasy is my go-to. I feel like it's very user-friendly. It's easy to share folders and share searches, and they're pretty strict about who puts things on there. But other people are using Trulia and Zillow. Zillow's owned by StreetEasy, but it's less enforcement on there, and they don't clean up their data. And StreetEasy reflects more accurate tax information and accurate co-op or condo. Zillow will put that a co-op is a condo so many times that it's been really frustrating for people that thought they were going to be able to get this property, but then turned out it was actually not a condo, it was a co-op. So we can set up searches for our clients in our backend database that aggregates listings for you as well, that you would email updates. Some people need me to do digging for them and then check in with them on a once a week basis, but really people do love looking at real estate. I call it real estate porn. Adult real estate. And keep in mind, when you're looking at listings online, you'll see sellers, brokers information. They represent the seller, and you want to make sure that if you're working with the buyer's broker, you have your broker who's representing you reach out to the seller's broker, who has a fiduciary responsibility to you, the buyer's broker, and the seller's broker has a fiduciary responsibility to the seller. They represent the financial best interest of the seller, not buyers. They don't have your best interest at heart and can end up losing more money than you save. A buyer's broker represents you and your best interest. I always like to say, when somebody comes to a property that I'm representing, I can submit this offer for you, but just so you know, I'm negotiating on the seller's behalf. Not as many people are as transparent as I am, and it's misleading on what's actually happening. So if you're putting an offer without a broker, you should know that the seller's broker is negotiating on behalf of the seller, because that's who they represent. So Farah's going to put the taking a condo co-op personality test in the chat. Making an offer. So we've been scouring the internet, going to tons of open houses. You finally got to a new place came on the market this spring, and you were the first one at the open house, and you loved it. And the same day, you are going to submit your offer. Because you are ready. Maybe you've put in other offers before and you learned that you were not so ready, so that this time you are ready. Because that is a learning curve that some people have to learn. But so you have gotten everything ready and you have put in a beautiful cover letter, you have put in your pre-approval and your revenue submit offer form to me to submit to the seller's broker with all our updated numbers. And we are going to show that we are serious and show confidence in our numbers and our strategy. Being the first offer has a psychological impact on the sellers, especially if you pull their heartstrings so that they feel like, oh, this was us 10 years ago or 5 years when we started out in this apartment. They feel tied to that. So I think it's really strong when you are the first offer. I could talk a little bit about existing market conditions, which is that, I mean, December is like, this is the time to get the deal. I already said that because people want to move their property. They've been probably on the market for a while. Nobody lists their house in November and December. Just not, everybody's so tied up in the holiday season. If you guys want to talk about that more specifically, we can keep it till the end and keep things moving and going over. One of the biggest resources with working with buyers agents to provide their relationship of knowledge of working with other agents. And the same thing with lawyers and mortgage professionals is that we do repeat deals together. It's so great always when I ask to see and schedule an appointment with a broker, and then I put an offer, and they're like, "Oh, Victoria, I'd love to do another deal with you." And I always feel the same way because we've done deals together. We know how the rhythm of the deal. We know how to work together. I know that we can trust that we get this deal to the closing table. It's always a gamble working with a broker you've never worked with before. And this year, I had one deal fall apart because the other broker did not know what they were doing, and a second broker for the same property that I almost strangled because I was like, why aren't we having an appraisal? Where it's been 3 weeks, there's not been an appraisal, whereas it's 4 weeks. And like we'd already had one deal die, and like I just had never done a deal with her, and she was flighty. So I just, it's important to work with trusted people. And the same thing happens when send out deal sheets. Rashida and Jim Ratliff are the two lawyers. They're like, oh, we've done so many deals together. Hi, how are you? I haven't talked to you since last week. It's great. So that means that people already know each other and make the deals happen. Everything's more seamless for you, less stressful. That's why I'm always encourage you not to hire your uncle as your lawyer, because when there's somebody that doesn't know the flow of things, they rock the boat, and that's when you potentially lose the apartment of your dreams because somebody thought they were trying to look out for you or do the right thing, but what they did was just rub somebody the wrong way, and now we have a problem. So we try to not have more problems because this is already complicated enough, especially with the banks involved and where interest rates are these days. We're trying to get you swiftly into the best situation possible, and we want to do that smoothly. So you want to have a negotiation strategy with your agent to create and devise a strategy. Everything needs to be negotiated beforehand with your accepted offer. It's prepared and submitted to the lawyers on a deal sheet. So we are getting credits unless it comes up in the inspection. But most of the times it's, if we're getting a seller's credit or if we're, it's based on the financing and an inspection. You want to make sure that those are the terms that are outlined. If the seller is going to be giving 6 months credit on like the maintenance or all sorts of other credits. You can tell me some crazy credits, crazy concessions or something, Rashida, that maybe I'm not thinking of. And when we get to the contract terms, go out on the deal sheets, even if you're in a bidding war and you offer above asking price, your offer is contingent. What happens at the inspection and what isn't as a sale? I'm going to let you take all of that, Lisa and Rashida, about what happens next after we've submitted our offer, gets accepted, and deal sheets go out.
Okay, so as Victoria said, the realtors, I've always said the attorneys come in as the third parties. You've been pre-approved by your mortgage person, your agent has found you the property and negotiated the terms and you made your offer. So Farah, if you want to go to the next slide. So now that your offer has been as I said, off the deal sheet has been prepared. A deal sheet is a summary of your offer. This goes out to both attorneys for the seller and for the buyer. And the seller's attorney is the one that prepares the contract of sale. As a buyer's attorney, depending on the property, there's certain things that have to happen. So if you are looking at a co-op, condo, or a house, main thing that you want, I always ask my clients is, have you done your inspection? Your inspection is done prior to you signing the contract, but after your deal your offer has been accepted. The reason you do your inspection in New York prior to signing the contract is there a term in the contract that provides you're purchasing the property and as is, that you've either waived your inspection or you understand the condition of the property. So even though your offer has been accepted, things can still be negotiated. You have to do your inspection. If something comes up and there's the roof isn't needs to be replaced, or there's electrical issues, things like that. Something is broken. That comes up during your inspection report, and the realtors can negotiate if there's a credit for that, or if the seller has to fix things. My rule of kind of thumb is that as a buyer, you want to be in control of certain major things. So if it's a roof issue, or if it's not a structural, because structural you probably don't want to purchase, but if it's a roof issue, or if it's a some electrical work, maybe you want to get a credit and you take care of that after you close, because now you can hire your own electrician, you can hire your own individuals to do those type of works. But if it's something minor as the dishwasher needs to be installed properly, the windows have to be aligned a little bit better, things like that, you may want to say, hey, we want the seller to do that prior to closing. And these things can be incorporated into that contract of sale that your attorney is negotiating and going over with the seller's attorney prior to you signing. If you're looking at a co-op or a condo, the role of your attorney also has to do is due diligence on the property. I explained it like you visually love the property, but with a co-op or a condo, you're buying into a corporation or a condo association. So you want to make sure that you understand the financial implications. Has there been history of common charge increases or maintenance increases? Is there litigation? Is there issues with shareholders? Have there been leaks? What's going on in the building that now may financially implicate you? Especially as things such as maintenance increases or common charges, because what your maintenance is today in January typically is when co-ops and condos increase their maintenance. So is this going to affect you if you have a budget of $1,400 and in the past 5 years they've had maintenance increases of 5% every year? This is something that you may need to incorporate into your budget. And these are things that your attorney is looking for when they're doing that due diligence. That due diligence takes probably about a week, depending on the building, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depending on the co-op or the condo and the management company. Once that due diligence is complete, that's when you go and sign the contract with your attorney. Your attorney has already finalized the contract with the seller's attorney, making sure that if there's a mortgage contingency because you're getting a mortgage, that's in the contract of sale. Typically, you have 30 to 45 days to get your mortgage commitment after you get into contract. The pre-approval is great, but the bank still has to do certain things after you get into contract. They have to do the appraisal on the property. If it's a co-op or a condo, they have to approve the condo building. They have to approve the co-op building. So there's a lot of things that happen even after your pre-approval that happens once you're in contract of sale. So that's why it's also important that if you're getting a mortgage, that your contract has a mortgage contingency in there. So these are things that are happening to getting you into contract. Your inspection is done prior to you going into contract. Due diligence is done prior to you going into contract. Myself as an attorney, I like to go over your estimated closing costs. So I'll go over that with you because I'm able to get from the co-op or the condo, what fees are you responsible for? If it's a house, I can look up to see you have mortgage tax, you have, title insurance. So you have certain things that you want to be prepared for in addition to your down payment that you have to put down on signing of contract once you get into contract. Once you get into contract, then there's another step that happens. You've done your inspection, you understand the as-is part, you've negotiated the credits, you've negotiated repairs, so all of that is in the contract of sale, and now you've signed, you've given your down payment, typically 10%, or if it's something else lower that has been negotiated, that happens. Most contracts now are signed electronically. Your down payment is either given via wire or a down payment check. Your attorney will go over that with you and make sure that it's, the terms are exactly what you agreed upon, and also the logistics of signing and going, giving that down payment. So Farah, if you want to go to the next step of actually in contract, and what does in contract mean, and the things that happen there. So contract, I sent out an email to you. Congratulations, you're in contract. Your deadlines for your mortgage, your deadlines for getting your on or about closing date, typically about on or about 60 days, or on or about maybe 90 days of a co-op. And then Lisa is or who your loan officer is. That's when now they come back into the picture, and they have to work on getting you your mortgage within that 30 to 45-day period. And Lisa can speak a little bit more of what that happens on the back end.
Awesome. Thank you, Rashida. So this is not going to come as a surprise to me, because we are going to be in contact the entire time so that we have everything ready to go for when contracts come in. When Rashida emails you and me and says, here we go, here are the contracts, here are the important dates, then on our end, it becomes what is a live deal. So that means we get you initial disclosures to e-sign, we order the appraisal, and we get you prepped for underwriting as quickly as possible. And I have to say that this is when me and my team really shine. We get you through underwriting very, very quickly. And first of all, a big part of that is because you've given me a lot of stuff up front. So we're halfway there in terms of getting prepared to get you into underwriting. One of the reasons why getting you through underwriting as quickly as possible is so important is because, first of all, if you are buying the co-op, part of the process is having a co-op board interview. The co-op will not schedule the board interview until they have what's called a commitment letter from the bank, which is basically an underwriter stamp of approval that this loan looks great, we're ready to go. So the faster you get through underwriting on the bank end, the faster you get a board interview. Even if you're not buying a co-op, you want to get through underwriting as quickly as possible, because it's just one hurdle, a very big hurdle, to ensuring that there are no issues with this loan. My processor Danielle and I will work through getting you prepared for underwriting. We will get you into underwriting as quickly as possible. Our turn time is usually 2 to 3 days at the most. And then you are going to get a commitment letter. And that commitment letter is going to have conditions. It is going to definitely have paid in full for a 1-year homeowners insurance, because when you buy a property, you pay your first year of homeowners insurance prior to or at closing. And it might have a few other conditions, like, a new pay stub or a clarification of this income or what have you. And then with that commitment letter, you are going to work with Victoria to get your board application ready if it's a co-op. And if you are not buying a co-op, then you're going to work on satisfying those conditions so that we can get you back into underwriting for clear to close as quickly as possible. Do you want me to stop here, Victoria, to go over the board interview, or how do you want to do it?
All while this is happening is that we are creating your board package, because we can't submit your board package until we have your commitment letter. So we're waiting for, you've gotten everything to the bank. Most important is first thing you get everything to the bank to Lisa. And then while Lisa's working on underwriting, we're working on your board package, so that the minute that the commitment letter comes in, because we have, I think, 2 to 5 days usually after commitment comes in to submit the board package. So everything really needs to be plugged in and ready to go. You're just updating maybe 1 or 2 numbers and hitting send. And sometimes it's really intense. Like, we have to collate 300 to 400 pages worth of paperwork. Not fun. Such a waste of paper. But some co-op boards are old and antiquated, and that's just, some new fresh blood's going to come in and help them update their systems, and that might be you. So that's what we're doing while we're in underwriting and trying to get to contract.
Also, part of the process is when you're in contract, your bank assigns a bank attorney to the file. So if you're purchasing a co-op, you'll get some documentation from the bank attorney that you need to include in your application to the board. It's called an Aztec agreement. The bank attorney will send you certain documents that you need to sign as well. And your attorney will remind you about this and make sure that you're getting what you need to the bank and also to the bank attorney. So on the back end, things are going smoothly as you go through this 30 to 45 days of getting your mortgage commitment and then getting you into your board approval if it's a co-op. If it's a condo, condos have applications now, a lot of the buildings. So it's a similar process, but not as intense. You don't have to do an interview for a condo, but some of them do require that you submit an application. If it's a house, it's just a matter of the bank getting you the mortgage during that 30 to 45 days. And then after you get in your mortgage, the bank clearance to close. So those are the things that happen while you're in contract: the appraisal, mortgage, back behind the scenes, your attorney's working with your loan officer, with your realtor, making sure that they get the information that they get. Title search is done on the property as well, which is important. A title search, they're searching the property to make sure there's no judgments, liens, violations. If it's a co-op, if there's a mortgage that the seller has, they also search your name to make sure that you don't have any judgments. Parking tickets, judgments comes up. I've had MetroCard tickets come up sometimes on judgments that clients have to pay. Federal tax liens, state tax liens. If you have any of those things, all of those will come up on a judgment search. So you want to make sure that you pay off everything, hopefully in advance, as you've been preparing yourself to purchase this property, so that you're not surprised if something comes up on the title. And nothing does come up on the title, even as a purchaser, because a search is done against your name as well. And also, if you're looking to purchase with family members, that's something, understand that searches are done against them as well, as part of the process.
So all of that, because earlier Brian asked, why do you need an attorney? And why is attorney necessary? Is because everybody else also has an attorney and is in the industry standard here in New York to have an attorney, because real estate brokers cannot write contracts in New York. So the contracts are handled by attorneys. And Rashida, have anything more to add to that part?
I kind of went over the job of the attorney part of
Yeah,
the
I
due
know. You did
diligence,
all of that. You just
getting
did
you
all
in
that stuff. Yeah.
contract,
Yeah.
and then
And
also,
and
getting
contract
you
law is
into.
complicated, and the co-op's going to have an attorney, the condo is going to have an attorney, and the seller's going to have an attorney, and the bank's going to have an attorney, and everybody's going to have an attorney except for you, Brian.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
So
you just
that's why you
actually,
filed.
want.
can I just add one thing to that? Because actually, my husband's an attorney, but he's a litigator. And I would never use him for a real estate deal because I'm like, he'll kill the deal because just because he's a litigator, he's not a real estate attorney. And he would be the first one to say that he would never do a real estate transaction because that's simply not his avenue of expertise. And it's really important that you work with attorneys and mortgage professionals and real estate professionals who really, really know New York City, because it is entirely different kettle of fish than if you are buying, a single family home in Nebraska or even in California or Florida. In New York, it just works completely differently, and you need to have an attorney and a mortgage and real estate professional that really understand those markets, or else you're gonna feel some pain through the process, to be honest.
And just also to kind of go back on that, is you're purchasing, you've saved up either 10% or more for this transaction. It's a lot of money. You want to make sure that your funds are protected. So a lot of the questions that I get from purchasers: what happens to my down payment if I'm not able to get a mortgage? What happens to my down payment if I'm not able been approved by the co-op? So you want to make sure that you understand the terms of the contract, because there are certain situations, if certain steps happen, your down payment now becomes at risk because you're in a firm contract at certain parts. Your attorney can negotiate certain things as far as reasons for you to cancel the contract after your mortgage commitment is issued. Your attorney wants to review your mortgage commitment to make sure that the appraisal has been done, that certain conditions have been done, because you don't want your down payment to be at risk. And that's really what you want to make sure that you're working with an attorney that does real estate, because they know what terms to look for. They know what terms to make sure. They want to make sure the seller's attorney is also licensed, because your down payment is held in escrow by the seller's attorney until closing. You want to make sure that you understand your time frames, your deadlines, such as your mortgage commitment, such as what does an on or about closing date means, what does a time of essence closing date means. When you're locking in your rate, what does that mean? So you have those conversations with your loan officers, because as you said, as a buyer, it's an overwhelming experience, and your down payment is really what you're putting on the line.
Yeah, you don't want to lose all your money. So, the other question, did we tie everything up? Did we get to the closing table, guys?
I think the next slide, we're about to get to the closing statement. So we haven't
Yeah.
scared you off. You've been approved by your bank. You've got your bank clearance to close, which is always the fun. That's when your attorney can now say you are ready to schedule your closing. We've said this many times in the past, is that we tell clients, do not schedule a move, do not do anything until your attorney has notified you that you have that clearance to close. The parties have confirmed a closing date. If you're buying a co-op, you have maybe about 7 or 8 different parties that you're trying to schedule for the same day on the same time. If it's a house, not as many parties, but still equally, you have the title closer, your bank attorney, the seller's attorney, payoff, etc. So there's a bunch of different parties that you have to schedule. And one of the terms in your contract of sale is that you do a final walkthrough prior to closing, typically 24 to 48 hours, because you may not have been to the property in the last 60 days or 90 days, depending on the property. And you want to make sure that the seller has moved out, there hasn't been any changes in the property, there hasn't been any leaks, and your agent is the one that will be there with you during that final walkthrough and coordinate with you as far as getting you available for that. Your attorney closing the deal will get the final numbers from the bank to tell you what bank checks you need to bring for the closing, prepare you for your closing, which is typically an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the type of transaction, of you signing a lot of the disclosures and things you may have gotten from the bank in advance, and your attorney explaining the documents at the closing, because this is when you actually turn over the rest of your funds, turn over your mortgage proceeds, and also get the keys to the property on the day of the closing.
Before that, the day before, you do the final walkthrough to make sure you get the property in the condition that it's been promised to you. We also, if it is a co-op, you do a co-op board interview. After you submit your co-op application, they then can take 1 day to 6 to 8 weeks to get your co-op interview scheduled. You want to know and be prepared. So when you're locking your rate and talking to Lisa about that, what that timeline looks like, because you don't want to lock too early and have to be paying extension fees because the board is dragging their feet. And then, yeah, we get to the closing table and you get your keys, and then you'll call me the week later and say, I love it, I'm so happy here. Or do you have a name of a painter? And the other thing we say is don't schedule your move on the day of your closing. It's the most stressful thing you can do. The day after is usually the most ideal, if not further in advance, because there's so many moving parts. You don't need to add an extra layer of stress and crunch time to your experience. So there was one other question that Leslie asked about what happens if this is a cash deal. If it's a cash deal, there's no bank. You still have closing costs. You still have a board interview. If it's a co-op, you still have to get all your paperwork together for a co-op. You still do an inspection, all that kind of stuff. You're just not paying mortgage recording tax. You're not waiting for your financing to be approved. You're sort of
Can I just
streamlining the
chime in there
process.
for 1 second, Victoria?
Mhm.
That was a parent situation. A recent deal that actually I'm doing with Victoria was a client who borrowed money from their parents to buy a home, and then now we're doing delayed financing to pay them back. So that's another situation where you sort of get a little bit creative to get the property that you want, and then you do a refinance to pay back the parents after it's closed. So that's another situation that you can talk about if a cash out situation, to get the place, but you want to actually get a mortgage at some point down the road.
So that all your cash isn't sitting in your house. It's like it's being under the bed. Were there other questions for you guys that you had?
And just also regarding all cash transaction, versus a mortgage transaction, your contract will have it that is specifically all cash and that is not contingent on financing. So there's really only the one contingency would be if it's a co-op, obviously getting the co-op approval and a good lien search. If it's a condo, it's going to be getting the waiver and good title to the property. And if it's a house, it's just good title to the property. So your closing timeframes, you no longer have the 30 to 45 days to get your mortgage commitment. You're just going to have the time period to get title report and schedule the closing. So you're looking at a shorter time period for an all cash transaction. Typically, for a house, you can close anywhere between less than 30 days because the title report takes maybe 2 weeks. If it's a condo, same thing, it could be 30 days because you just have to submit the condo waiver application and depending on the building. If it's a co-op, it still may take 60 days because you still have to get the board approval, but you have to submit your application to the board within 10 business days typically of going into contract. So your time periods are a little bit less than if you're getting a mortgage.
Oh, so the board package, every board package is different, but they usually require like the last 2 years of tax returns, 3 personal referrals, your pay stubs. Like they're asking you for their firstborn basically before it's born. You have to do what they say because bend to their will or they will not let you in. So it's a very, people fear it's a very intrusive process because all your neighbors then know everything about you, but they ask you for a lot of things.
And
Um,
also
I can send you a
part,
sample board package that we have on our website. Go ahead. Sorry,
yeah.
Rashida.
And also, one of the things that your attorney does during that due diligence is also requesting a copy of the board application. So you'll be able to review that during the due diligence as well if your agent, your realtor doesn't have one. But I know Victoria typically they have that or they get it from the other side's agent. But just an
Mhm.
FYI, even during the due diligence, you should be getting a copy of the application so you can see and prepare yourself for what's going to be necessary.
And just one last thing, I know that we're running a little late, but I think this is another example of why it's so important to work with people who work together. Because if you're applying for a co-op or condo, along with the bank approving you, they're approving the building. And so with Victoria, who her team gets so much up front, and Rashida, who does such a great job with the due diligence, they share that information with me. So I'm basically knowing if there's an issue that we need to deal with the project, I learn about it as soon as possible rather than waiting to hear back from it from the management company 2 or 3 weeks later when they fill out our questionnaire. And that just helps speed the process along. So that's just another reason why it's really important to work with people who work together because we're all going to share information with one another that we know the other person needs faster than through a third party.
All good. Everybody got their questions answered? Great. Well, it's 6 o'clock. We all want to go back to doing what we need to do. It's a busy time of year, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to join this call live and meet with us. And I look forward to talking you into the future. And if you have any other questions you need answered, you know how to reach us. Like I said, you'll be getting some resources from us as well as access to Basecamp and Realty MX if you end up working with us. You can schedule a call. You'll get our home buyer handbook as well as a recording of this class sent to you, as well as the Spotify link too. So if you have any questions, just follow up with us and we'll set up a 15-minute call. So have a great night, everybody. Thank you.